Over the last year and a half, I've tried apps, Netflix, YouTube, classes, podcasts, movies, flashcards, books, AI, music, and courses to try to learn German on my own from scratch. And looking back, I wish I had known which resources to use at each stage of my journey. So in this video, I'll guide you through which tools and methods actually yielded results for my German at each part of my journey, from starting as a complete beginner to where I am now at a beginning intermediate level. The very first thing that helped me was watching a free course on YouTube called Learn German Smarter, Not Harder. German is very different to English and French, and the grammar is very complicated. And I found myself coming back to parts of this course at different parts of my journey because I needed a refresher, and Laura simplifies German so clearly and concisely. This course offers you a great overview and introduction to German, including the different and weirder aspects of the language. For example, capitalizing nouns, how plurals work, and the dreaded declensions. You don't have to perfectly understand everything the first go. It's just really good of a kind of overview. But a one-off course in English to get an overview in German will only take you so far. So when you're ready to dive in and learn some German, let's take a look at the primary resource I suggest for beginners. We are so lucky as German learners because there is an online course that is 100% free and will take you all the way from having zero knowledge in German to learning the basics such as greetings, numbers, the alphabet, and even getting progressively harder so that by the end of it, you're able to understand and build simple sentences. Available on the Learn German website is the Nico's Weg A1 course. Through the course, you follow Nico, who is from Spain, through his adventure in Germany when he himself is also learning German. Each lesson, you watch a different video and it shows part of his adventure unfold, which is closely related to a different topic each lesson. It's a way in which you can learn German in a structured manner, which is also very helpful if you struggle with motivation because it takes the guesswork out of the equation. Now, I personally suggest most of the time just stick to one lesson per day. You can basically watch through the video a couple of times, go through all the questions, and at the very end, you can even translate the transcript. Now, if you don't get 100% in all of the questions, something I suggest you do is that the next day, go and redo the lesson that you had some trouble with until you get 100%. Now, I know courses can seem a little scary sometimes, and before I took this course, I actually wanted to ease myself into learning German a little bit to explore the language in a more fun way. So recently I'm loving this band called Kalundra, and after listening to a song on repeat, I was curious what the lyrics meant. So I looked them up, and now I know a couple of words in Norwegian. So it's the exact same for German. If you happen to also be into metal, here's some German bands and songs on my playlist. So the next thing you can use to ease yourself into learning German is to use... Okay, it's Duolingo, but I'm cutting in here because I need to tell you to proceed with a bunch of caution, alright? Because with me and with so many people that I know, they just get really addicted to streak building and joining the leagues and wanting to always win the next league, and it's all about gaining XP and not actually about learning the language. But Duolingo is incredible when you are just exploring a language and starting as a beginner. I'll suggest another app which is far better later. Now, something that didn't necessarily work as well for me was watching difficult Netflix shows. They just kind of went over my head. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't expose yourself to authentic German content at all. Because when we're babies and we're learning our native tongues, we do that by listening a ton. And for adults, the research shows that it's actually similar. Listening to the authentic language is going to be what improves your pronunciation by hearing the rhythm of the word and hearing how the word sounds. Plus, by listening to words you already understand, you can often figure out the meaning of new words in context. The challenge for beginners is that because you are essentially starting with a word bank of 0, you have to seek out some very specific resources that understand this and will cater to you. So the first one that I suggest for you is Mutsi. You can watch all these videos in not a lot of time just on YouTube. The second thing is to search on YouTube for Comprehensible German. German input videos. A lot of these are just very, very short videos, so you can just watch them all quite quickly. And then third, there are YouTubers who create entire channels around creating comprehensible input videos that are interesting for beginners. The first one that I so wish I would have discovered earlier on in my journey is Elio's Corner. And Deutsch mit Lari similarly creates very simple, slow German comprehensible input videos. Easy German is also good, and particularly for beginners, go and seek out in their playlist their slow German videos or their A1 videos. So in terms of where all this slots in, after you've finished completing Nikos Weg A1, prioritize spending a couple of months just immersing yourself and surrounding yourself with the German language. Slowly, you'll also start becoming aware of additional gaps that are still in your knowledge. So what better tool to use than the one that you're probably already using to watch this video? I'll share the app that is so much better than Duolingo, and here's why. Duolingo is just too slow and it doesn't show much in context. Learning how to say a simple sentence like "the man has a cat" is not really relevant to anything, and because it gamifies language learning to make it appear as easy as possible, it doesn't really show you the reality of the complexities of the German language. But this isn't very helpful if you're serious about learning German. So the app I suggest that does none of these things is Link. You can trial it for free, but you can't really use it on an ongoing basis unless you do pay for a subscription, so just a heads up for that. What I found so useful were the short stories that they have in the app with recorded audio. I would pick a short story, play the audio, and start reading the text. And you can tap on the words to translate them, and you can even save them and then revise them later on in flashcards if that's something that you like. The short stories are made for beginners, but when I first saw them, it was quite challenging for me at first because the sentence structure in German is like nothing that I've seen before. It's completely different to English and French, and that's also what makes it extremely cool. But basically, this app doesn't shy away from anything. From the get-go, you will see separable verbs, declensions, putting an infinitive verb at the end of the sentence in real, authentic German, but still simplified so that a beginner can understand. So particularly if you catch the bus to work a lot, or you find yourself procrastinating with Duolingo, I recommend the Link app. And if you do also really enjoy reading, I also picked up the book Short Stories in German for Beginners. This is by Ollie Richards, and I got the audiobook plus the physical book. Although this is for beginners, this is still more difficult than the short stories that you see within the Link app. The next few resources are a couple of beginner suitable podcasts that I would listen to in the background or whilst doing other tasks. German Stories, Learn German with Stories is targeted for ultimate beginners, and what they do is they give you a short story snippet to listen to, and then they dissect it by going through the translation of it, and then they even cover a little bit of grammar. Another one that's really good is Learn German by Podcast. They only have 20 episodes, but you can listen to all of them and still get a very good fundamental understanding of German. But really, knowing German is all about actually hearing or reading and processing the language in real time. And there came a moment of time in my journey where I felt like I had grasped the A1 basics quite nicely, but I couldn't really understand anything meaningful. But there were 3 particular methods that each made me feel like my comprehension really leveled up. When I go back to my French journey, something that really helped my French comprehension was reading email newsletters. So I had to look for some that were going to be suitable for a beginning level for German. And after subscribing to a ton that were extremely unsuitable for beginners, I did land on 2 which drastically improved my comprehension and vocabulary. The first one is Richtig Deutsch sprechen, but I wouldn't just simply read the email and then delete it and get on with my day. I would go through the email word by word, sentence by sentence, and translate anything that I didn't understand until I could read and understand the whole thing. And when you subscribe to a newsletter, you may have noticed that it triggers like a whole welcome sequence, so you often get a lot of emails in the first few days upon signing up. So after the first email, the second day I got another email, and it was very similar to the first one in that it used a lot of the same vocabulary, but it was still different. So I was getting some spaced repetition and seeing these new words in a second context. Plus, German teachers are targeting German learners, so their whole wording and way they write sentences is going to be simplified. It's still challenging, but doable. Another newsletter that was also amazing is by Dein Sprachcoach. I also started watching Dein Sprachcoach's YouTube channel as well. So now to talk about the second method that really boosted my comprehension, another YouTube channel which I can't say enough positive things about was recommended to me one day. Thank you, YouTube. And it truly made me so happy and got me so excited about learning German that I decided I was actually going to attempt to memorize an entire video by this creator. Deutsch mit Lara specifically makes German sound so wonderful that I just felt crazy motivated to try to speak German like Lara. I did find her shortest YouTube video, and for about a week I genuinely tried to memorize as much of this video that I could. I activated the best Chrome extension ever, Language Reactor, to see the dual subtitles in German and English. So I would watch a sentence and then pause it, really took the time to make sure I understood it, then I'd say it out loud and repeat afterwards. And it might sound really simple, but just taking the time, similarly to how I did with the newsletters, to really go through and understand it and then try to replicate what someone else was saying really boosted my understanding. And I actually ended up memorizing a couple of minutes through the video, and this just turned out to be a very useful exercise. Plus, doing this improved my pronunciation a lot. And the third activity that stands out to me as truly leveling up my German, which was a bit of a crazy one, but I have to mention it anyway, and that was doing a German 1000 flashcard challenge. Days and Words made a video where he learned 1000 words in Spanish in a single day, and I wanted to try it for myself. So once I did the challenge, I spent about a week watching loads of German Disney movies, and I just was really clearly able to notice a whole ton of the words that I had stuffed into my brain coming up again and again in the movies, and I found that I was just able to understand a lot more. So you might be wondering when to jump back into more structured learning or when to learn new grammar again, but for A2. Once you feel like you understand what you've learned from the A1 course, but you can actually see it and apply it in real authentic contexts. If I could go back and kind of capture a very specific moment of what this looked like, I recall one day I was listening to a Dein Sprachcoach YouTube video where she was talking about how she learnt German. And I just recall being able to actually follow along with the storyline of this video. Obviously, I didn't catch every single word, but I could understand the gist. So I think that's when I would have been ready. In reality, I went on to consume German content for about 9 months, which I do think was too long. I was just kind of passively, very, very slowly improving. And in terms of my speaking at this stage, I would say some random words, but couldn't conjugate them properly or use the right cases and endings. I was just lacking a whole bunch of grammar, which was preventing me from being able to form sentences. The A2 structured German grammar course that I took was Maria's Dein Sprachcoach A2 course. I've done a detailed video on this course if you're curious. Particularly the grammar modules really helped me bridge the grammar gaps that I was lacking. Now you could also just stick with Nikos Weg because they have a free A2 course there as well. So at the A2 level, grammar is so important, but you're also going to want to elevate your comprehension even further. And what's so exciting about language learning is that when you stick to it, your progress inches its way forwards and you can progressively consume more and more difficult content. So let's go through the best immersion resources that I've found for A2, and I'll start with those that actually target German learners. So I've already mentioned Easy German, Elio's Corner, Deutsch mit Lari, Deutsch mit Lara, Dein Sprachcoach. So some more YouTube channels are Chill German, Everyday German, Nina Aseng, and Learn German Fast. And now for some podcasts. Deutsch Podcast, Deutsch Lernen, Expertly German, Easy German, Sprechzeiten, and Slow German. But there is something just extremely motivating when you can understand content targeted at German native speakers. It's harder to find such content for A2 because some Germans will just speak so fast. But occasionally you will come across someone who speaks slower and clearer. So many many of these resources are good for A2, and they're also going to be good for B1 as well. So starting with YouTube channels, Yasmin Werde Produktiv. She creates very useful productivity and self-management YouTube videos. She also has an amazing newsletter. Next is Bodo Schäfer. I discovered him recently doing a German live stream, and I wish I discovered his videos sooner because he makes videos about mindset, finance, health, self-improvement, sleep, but he speaks so clearly and slowly for someone targeting German natives. It's really amazing. Next is Lauren Angela. Lauren is American but speaks German fluently, and she makes videos about her life in German but also culture shocks, and I do find her easier to understand. Next is Daily Vania. She makes a lot of vlogs if you enjoy that kind of a video, and one of my favorites is Enjoy Self-Love. So this is a bit of a niche recovery channel, but her videos have been so helpful for my German, so I'm sharing it anyway. Franziska Pragman. She creates videos about mindset and being a digital nomad, and I also suggest this specific video by Linguaholic, which is all about how to learn a language. I can also recommend this video here. You'll really surprise yourself with how much German you can understand when you listen to this video. And now for podcasts. So Yasmin also has a podcast called Produktiv Jetzt. I was so happy when I found this because I could finally somewhat understand a native level podcast. And the vocabulary surrounding productivity and self-development is simpler, which is why I do find it a good niche for German learners to seek content from. Another one I enjoy listening to is the Real Girl Energy podcast, and finally Finanzfluss, although this one is quite a bit more difficult, but they do have some episodes which I found easier to follow. So whilst you're consuming the content that you enjoy, one method that has increased my vocabulary a ton is to quite simply track the new words that I come across in a note. Then come back to the note regularly and review the words, but then also reconsume the same content so that you can see those words coming up again and again. And I go into this method about how to learn vocabulary effectively in this video here. When it comes to speaking, I need to address why I didn't pay much attention to practicing conversations until very recently in my German journey. Research shows that extensive input through listening and reading before focusing on output, speaking and writing, can be more effective for language acquisition, which is all about how we naturally learn languages. By building a strong foundation through getting comprehensible input, learners just develop a better feel for the language and then can produce more natural sounding output when they try speaking. Paid options are going to be much easier, such as finding a conversation tutor on italki or even signing up to a language course platform like Lingoda. On Lingoda, you can book classes, get a teacher assigned, and actively participate through speaking. Free options are also possible, but they're just going to take a little bit more work to find somebody. You can have a look on online language exchange platforms. I think probably more effectively would be to go to in-person language meetups in your area to talk to somebody directly. And then you can also use technology, so ChatGPT, and there's other AI platforms out there that also provide a voice feature so you can simulate a conversation with AI. Personally, so far, I've been doing my own unofficial language Lingoda sprint for the last 2 months. So I will be making a whole video about that soon, but I don't think you can go wrong with any of these speaking resources. They just have their pros and cons, so you have to try them out and see what works for you. So now for movies and TV shows. Early on, I watched Shrek 2 a number of times in German, and then as I mentioned, I also did watch quite a few German Disney movies after learning the 1000 words. I would say that watching reality TV in German for me has just been easier to understand than an actual TV series with a plot, because I just find that they speak more authentically. So I've enjoyed watching like Nailed It Germany, Too Hot to Handle Germany, Fight for Paradise, although the French version of the show is seriously so much better. And I should probably also watch Love is Blind Germany next too. Don't judge me. Incorporating more and more Netflix shows into my routine will actually become quite valuable because my vocabulary is increasing more and more. So if you are at the B1 stage, then binge watch away. This is something that really did help my French comprehension when I was at the B1 stage as well. And I'm also not going to leave it so long to learn the B1 German grammar. This is a great time to combine speaking with grammar. Lingoda do offer that. Or again, you can opt for self-paced learning through a course, a textbook. Nikosveg B1 is again another free option. And if you've made it this far and you still want even more resources, I share some unique ones that will specifically help you expand your vocabulary in this video here. All the best for your German and thank you so much for watching. Vielen Dank fürs Zuschauen und bis zum nächsten Mal.